Wyoming Territory. Late October of 1878, the wind carried a bite, sharp with the promise of snow, as the sun dipped low over the town of Buffalo. Horses snorted in the chill, steam curling off their backs, and wagons creaked in the yard behind the livery. That was where he saw her. She sat alone on the edge of a wagon tongue, hands tucked under her arms, dress dusty and hem torn. Her boots were scuffed, and her eyes tracked the dirt like it might give her answers. She looked like she had been waiting too long. And the way her shoulders stayed tight, like she was holding something in, told him she did not expect help to come. Bram Hollies had just meant to water his mare and move on. But now he stood still, watching her. Something about her, the quiet way she held herself, the hollow in her cheeks, the stubborn light in her eyes pulled him in before he knew it. "You waiting on somebody?" he asked, stepping closer, hat in hand. She looked up, startled, then steadied. "No. Not anymore." Her voice was low, raspy from cold or crying, he could not tell which. She had a face like the prairie sky after a storm, bruised but clear. "My name's Bram," he said, gentle. "You got a name?" She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Willa Joyner." He nodded slowly, crouching down beside the wagon. "You hungry, Willa?" "I ain't got coin." Did not ask that. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a strip of jerky and offered it to her. She took it like she expected him to snatch it back. He waited while she chewed. She did not ask questions, and he did not push. The yard behind them was mostly empty now. The last of the wagons had rolled out that morning, headed west before winter sealed the pass. She swallowed hard. "They left me." Bram leaned his forearms on his knees. "Who?" "My brother and his wife. Said they could not carry 3 mouths through the mountains. Said I'd do better in town, but I waited, just in case." "How long?" 2 days. His jaw tightened. "You sleep out here," she nodded. Bram stood and shrugged off his coat, then unrolled the thick wool blanket tied to his saddle. He laid it over her shoulders without asking, the motion easy like it was nothing. But to her, it was everything. "You do not even know me," she whispered. "I know enough. I know you should not be out here freezing, and I know what it feels like to get left behind." That made her look at him. "Really look." He gave a small half smile and held out his hand. "Come on. I got a fire going back at my camp, just outside town. You can warm up, eat something proper." She hesitated. "You do not have to stay," he said. "But you should not be alone tonight." She stood slowly. "All right." They walked through the edge of town in silence, her steps slow from cold and weariness. He did not ask questions, just kept pace with her, his hand hovering near in case she stumbled. When they reached the cottonwoods by the creek, his camp came into view. A small tent, bedroll, and a fire ring with coffee already warming. He pulled a tin from his saddlebag and handed her a biscuit and some beans. She ate slow, watching him like she still was not sure what to make of him. "You got family?" she asked after a while. "Used to," he said, poking at the fire. "Lost my brother in the war. Mama passed soon after, just me now." She nodded. "Me too. My folks died in Texas. Sickness swept through in the spring. My brother said we'd start over out west." He did not say what he was thinking, that her brother had no right calling himself kin after what he had done. Instead, he poured her a cup of coffee and sat across from her. They stayed like that a long time, the sound of the fire filling the silence. "You gonna stay in Buffalo?" he asked finally. Her eyes dropped. "I do not know where else to go." He looked over at her, at the way her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket like it was the only solid thing left in the world. "You could come with me," he said, quiet but sure. She blinked. "What?" "I got a stretch of land up north. Not much, but enough. Cabin's rough, but it is warm. I could use someone who knows how to keep a fire going and tell me when I am being an idiot." She stared at him. "I am not offering charity," he said. "I am offering a life beside me. If you want it." She looked down, then back up. You do not even know me. I know you sat alone for 2 days and did not give up. I know you got more grit than most men I have met. And I know I would like to know everything else. Her breath caught. You offering marriage, he nodded, steady. I am. Willa looked at the fire, then up at the stars. Then she looked at him. I have not had anything steady in a long time, she said. You could, he said. With me. She reached across the space between them and laid her hand on his. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, she smiled. I think I would like that, Bram Hollies. He turned his hand over, lacing their fingers together. Then that is settled. By dawn, thin frost clung to the grass along the creek bank, and the canvas of the tent crinkled with cold. Willa woke to the scent of pine smoke and the low clatter of tin against iron. She sat up slowly, her muscles tight from days of strain, but the blanket Bram had given her still held a trace of warmth. He was crouched by the fire, coaxing heat from a few stubborn coals, his shirt sleeves rolled up to the elbows. He didn't speak right away, just handed her a strip of salt pork and a fresh tin of beans, warmed through and steaming. Thank you, she said, her voice clearer now, steadier. He nodded once, then sat across from her, chewing his own breakfast in silence. The air between them felt different, less like strangers, more like two people trying to figure out how to share the same space without crowding it. After a few bites, she asked, "What's your land like?" "Up north, I mean. Cottonwoods along the river, good soil. Got a slope behind the cabin that catches the morning sun. Elk pass through in the fall and the creek runs clean most the year." He paused, then added, "Roof's patched good, keeps the weather out." Her lips tilted barely. "Sounds better than a wagon yard." He looked at her hands, raw around the knuckles. "You ever worked a homestead before?" "Not mine, no. But I helped my ma in Texas. Knew my way around a root cellar and a churn before I turned 12. She wiped her fingers on her skirt. "I can mend too. And I'm not afraid of hard work." "You'll need to be," Bram said, not unkindly. "Winter's early around those parts. We'll have to cut wood near every day to keep ahead of it, and there's fence to mend come spring." She nodded like she'd already begun building it in her mind. "I can learn fast." He studied her a beat longer. "You'll have your own say in things. I don't take to barking orders." "I don't take to being barked at," she said, eyes meeting his. Something passed between them, then an understanding not spelled out but firm as a handshake. After they broke camp, Bram lashed their gear to his pack horse. Willa helped without being asked, tying knots with practiced hands. She didn't look lost anymore, just tired in a way that would ease once she had steady ground beneath her feet. As they rode out, she asked, "How far is your place?" "Day and a half if we cut through the pass. 2 if we take the long way around." She adjusted her shawl against the wind. "I can manage." They rode in tandem, not pressed for words. The trail turned narrow where the hills rose, ochre and pine covered, and the sound of hooves softened on dry needles. Somewhere ahead, a hawk cried, circling high over the ridge. At mid-morning, they paused by a stream to water the horses. Willa dipped her hands, letting the cold run over her wrists. Bram fished a tin from his saddlebag and offered her dried apples. As she chewed, she glanced sideways. "Why'd you stop at the livery yesterday?" "To check my mare's shoe." She'd thrown one the day before. She considered that. "So if she hadn't, you wouldn't have found me." "No," he said, watching the water. "But I reckon I was meant to." She didn't answer, but her gaze lingered on him a moment longer than before. That night they camped beneath a stand of aspens, their leaves rattling like coins in a tin. The fire was smaller, careful in the dry brush, and they sat close by necessity. Bram offered her the warmer side of the bedroll and used his saddle for a windbreak. As the stars came out, she said, "I used to be scared of woods at night, thought coyotes would come for me." He looked over. "You still scared?" She shook her head. "Not tonight." He didn't reach for her, didn't press. Just let the silence settle. When she lay down, she turned to face him. "You always this quiet?" "Only when I've got something worth listening to." That made her laugh, soft and surprised. He watched her settle in, her face turned toward the firelight. She looked less like someone surviving, more like someone beginning. And for the first time in too many years, Bram felt the shape of something solid and real forming alongside him, not a rescue, not a burden, just the start of a life neither of them had planned, but both had decided to claim. They reached the edge of Bram's land by late afternoon the next day, riding in through a line of bare-limbed willows that framed the narrow trail like sentries. A dusting of snow clung to the windward sides of tree trunks, and the sky had flattened into a dull stretch of pewter. Willa pulled her shawl tighter as the cabin came into view. It sat low against a rise, made of hand-hewn pine, the roof topped with sod that had browned under the cold. A lean-to stretched off the west side, sheltering a rough-hewn chopping block and a rusted saw buck. Smoke curled from the stovepipe in a thin line, barely visible against the pale sky. Bram dismounted first and stepped to her horse before she could swing down on her own. His palm brushed her boot as he steadied her, and when she landed, her knees bent slightly from the ride, but she stayed upright. "There's a spring out behind the cabin," he said. "Keeps running even when the creek freezes. You'll hear it if you listen close at night." She glanced toward the slope. "What's that up the hill?" "Cornfield. Didn't yield much this year. Lost some to crows, some to hail. I'll try oats next season." She nodded, her gaze moving slowly over the place that would be hers now too. He watched her eyes, not her mouth, to see what she thought. She didn't smile, but her shoulders dropped half an inch, and she moved toward the porch without hesitation. Inside, it was warmer than expected. The stove had held its heat from the last time Bram had passed through, and the air smelled faintly of cedar and iron. The floor was plank board, uneven in spots, and along the wall stood a narrow cot with a homespun quilt folded at its foot. "I'll build another bed," he said, "or widen this one, whichever you'd rather." Willa set her satchel down by the wall. "I'd rather build something new." Together, he nodded once, then stepped past her to the hearth and fed in another split log. She moved to the window and traced a crack in the pane with her fingertip. "You built this place yourself?" "The bones of it, yeah. Took 2 summers. My brother helped with the ridge beam before." He stopped, jaw tightening. "I finished the rest after." She didn't ask what had happened, just turned away from the window and said, "It holds the wind better than I thought it would." "Better than a wagon yard," he said, his voice quiet. She met his eyes then, not looking away. "That's behind me now." He crossed the space between them and held out a small, folded cloth. Inside were a handful of seed packets, beans, carrots, a few squash. "Found these in town last spring. Been waiting on someone who'd know what to do with them." She unfolded the cloth, thumb brushing over the paper labels. "We'll need rows cleared, soil turned. You got tools in the shed out back. You'll find a spade with a broken handle, but it'll hold for this season." She crouched to tuck the seeds into her bag. "Then I'll fix the handle." He watched her without speaking, something steady building behind his eyes. That night, after stew and bread, Bram sat at the table sharpening his skinning knife. Willa swept the hearth clean, then came to sit across from him. She turned her hands palm up on the table, red from work, nicked at the edges. "You don't ask much," she said. "I listen." She studied his face. "I wouldn't have said yes if I thought you were the kind of man to keep score. I'm not." She reached out, slid her fingers over his wrist. "Then I think I could be the kind that stays." He set the knife down slow, careful. "You already are." Outside, wind moved through the cottonwoods, rattling the last of the dry leaves. Inside, the fire burned low, and the quiet between them held no weight, only warmth. When she rose, she didn't ask where she should sleep. She crossed the floor and laid the quilt out wide, making space for him without fanfare. He doused the lamp and joined her there, boots left by the door, rifle resting near the frame. When he lay beside her, Willa turned toward him, her fingers resting against the wool of his shirt. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The warmth between them wasn't born of fire or haste, but of something deeper, of ground cleared and something planted, something that would grow. The weather turned sharper by the week's end, and the cabin held close the scent of smoke and damp wool. Willa rose before the frost softened, tying her hair back with a strip of calico she found in the bottom of her satchel. She moved through the cabin with quiet purpose, setting out the last of the cornmeal and slicing lard with the back of a spoon. Bram had already gone out to check the fence line, his boots leaving clean tracks across the hardened earth. By the time he returned, windburn touched his cheeks, and his hands were raw around the knuckles. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her knead dough into a rough circle, her sleeves pushed to the elbows. "You always this sure-handed with bread?" he asked. She didn't glance up. "Not always, but I watched my mother's until I could match her by weight and feel." She said good bread didn't need measuring, just knowing. He stepped inside and hung his coat by the stove. "Fence'll hold another month. After that, we'll need posts cut from the lower grove. I'll come with you. I've handled an axe before." "I believe it," he said, settling at the table. She paused, looking at him over her shoulder. "You ever get used to the quiet out here?" he considered. "Depends on the kind. There's the kind that follows you when you've lost too much, and the kind that comes when you've built something that don't need words to stay standing." Willa slid the skillet onto the stove and wiped her hands on her apron. "I think I'm still learning which kind this is." He didn't answer, but she caught the way his gaze lingered on her face, like he was taking measure of something settled and good. That afternoon, she walked the ridge behind the cabin, the hem of her skirt catching on dry grass and ice-bitten sage. Bram followed with a sharpened spade slung over one shoulder. They stopped at a patch of earth near the edge of the tree line, the ground dark beneath a layer of frost. "Spring's still a ways off," she said. "We can work the soil anyway. Let it breathe through winter. Makes for stronger roots come thaw." She knelt, pressing her palms to the ground. "There's loam beneath this. I can tell by the smell." Bram set the spade down and crouched beside her. "You got a good sense for it." "I had to. Back in Leno County, if your garden failed, you went hungry." They worked side by side, breaking apart the frozen crust, turning the earth in slow, even rows. Willa's breath came in clouds, her face flushed from the cold. Bram said little, content in the rhythm of labor beside her. As the sun dipped below the ridge, they sat on their heels, dirt under their nails and the new rows stretching behind them like a promise. Willa tucked her hands beneath her shawl and looked out toward the trees. "I never thought I'd end up in Wyoming," she said. "What did you think?" "I thought I'd marry some rancher in Texas, live 2 miles from my brother and spend my days boiling laundry and raising babies." She glanced at him. Then sickness came, and everything after that was just surviving. Bram didn't reach for her, but his voice softened. "You're not just surviving now." She looked down, then nodded. "No, I'm not." That night, she sat by the hearth mending a tear in his shirt while Bram carved a handle for the spade. The lamplight caught in the grooves of his hands, each motion patient and sure. "You were alone a long time," she said. He didn't look up. "Long enough to forget how to speak without being answered. You haven't forgotten." He set down the blade and met her eyes. "You make it easy to remember." The fire cracked once, then settled. Willa folded the shirt and rose, placing it beside his tools. She didn't say another word, just came to him, her hand resting lightly at his shoulder before sliding down to his wrist. He stood, slow and careful, when they lay beside each other that night. Neither reached first. But somewhere between the hush of wind outside and the warmth beneath the quilt, her hand found his. He didn't squeeze it. He didn't need to. And in the quiet, there was no space left for anything but peace. March came with silver light and the brittle scent of thaw. The hard crust of snow peeled back from the hilltops, and streams trickled again where ice had gripped them silent for months. Willa stepped out onto the porch just after dawn, her shawl pulled tight, eyes fixed on the slush-soft rows they'd turned before winter settled in. The soil would need airing again, but it was beginning. Everything was. Inside, Bram bent over a short plank of pine, shaping it with a draw knife. The stool he was building had taken him 3 evenings, not for lack of skill, but because he worked slow when it was for her. He looked up when she came back in, her cheeks red from the wind, her boots wet to the laces. "Creek's running clear again," she said, unfastening her outer skirt. "I saw trout holding under the bank." He set the plank aside. "We'll bring the lines down this week. Maybe set a trap or 2 for muskrat." She hung her shawl by the stove. "I'd like that." He watched her a moment, the quiet between them easy now, no longer filled with the uncertainty of first steps. She turned toward the table where a small sheet of paper lay between the candlestick and a battered tin of buttons. "This came from town while you were out. The merchant's boy brought it." Bram crossed the room, scanning the neat script. He folded it after a moment, tucking it into his vest pocket. "Something wrong?" she asked. "No, my brother's widow, she's remarried. Sending word because she thought I should know." Willa's brow creased. "You write her back, I might." He met her eyes. "But there's nothing left to settle between us." She nodded once, neither pressing nor softening, just accepting it as it was. Later that day, they walked the edge of the property, where the cottonwoods had dropped their branches like bones along the riverbank. Willa carried a basket for kindling. Bram carried an axe and a coil of rope. They worked in tandem. He split. She gathered without speaking much, but the silence came from comfort, not distance. As the sun dipped low, they sat on a fallen log to rest. Willa watched a hawk circle wide over the ridge, its wings catching the last of the light. "You ever think about leaving this place?" she asked. "I did, once or twice, but nothing ever called me louder than the quiet here." She looked down at her hands. "I never stayed anywhere long enough to miss it. You've stayed here." "I have," she said, "and I don't think I want to be anywhere else." Bram reached for her hand, not like a question, but like a truth. She let her fingers curl around his without pause. "I was thinking," he said, "come April we could plant more than what we planned. Maybe try tomatoes along the edge, see if they take." She smiled. "I've got seeds for them, been saving them since Lano." "Never had the right spot." "You do now." They walked back with the basket between them, full of kindling and the quiet thrum of something steady beneath their steps. That evening, Willa lit a taper and placed it in the window. Bram came behind her, his hands resting at her waist, warm even through the wool. She leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. "I never thought I'd feel safe again," she whispered. "You are," he said, his voice low. "With me." She turned then, and he kissed her like he meant to memorize it. Not rushed, not uncertain, just sure. Her hand slid up his chest, her breath caught between them. They moved together without pretense, just the slow, unfolding knowledge that this was no longer something to question. She undid the buttons of his shirt with fingers that didn't tremble, and when he lifted her, it was with reverence, not urgency. The bed they'd widened together held them close as the wind curled around the cabin walls. Their bodies found rhythm, not out of need but out of belonging. When she pressed her lips to the hollow of his throat, he whispered her name like a vow. Come morning, Will awoke to birdsong. The air still held a chill, but the light had changed, no longer the thin silver of winter, but something fuller. She turned to find Bram already dressed, stoking the stove. "You hungry?" he asked without turning. "Not yet," she said, rising slowly, "but I will be." He poured coffee into a tin cup and handed it to her. She took it, brushing his fingers as she did. "I've been thinking," she said, leaning against the wall. "Next week when we go to town for flour, we ought to stop by the circuit rider's place." Bram straightened, his eyes meeting hers. "You sure?" "I'm sure," she said. "I want it said proper. I want your name." He crossed the room in 2 steps and pulled her into his arms. She didn't resist. Her cheek pressed to his chest and she listened to the even beat of his heart. "Then we'll do it," he said. "Next week." She looked up. "And when we come back, I want to start on the cradle." His eyes softened. "You think I know," she said. "Not yet. But soon." He kissed her forehead, then her lips, lingering there. Outside, the sun climbed over the ridge, casting gold across the field. The garden waited. The land waited. But inside the cabin, love had already taken root, quiet and deep, growing in the way of all lasting things without rush, without noise, and certain as spring.